What's up, guys? I'm back here with another video, and this video is going to be a little different from what I normally make. So anyway, I just had a call with a 75-year-old public defender, and for those of you who don't know what a public defender is it's a lawyer that practices criminal law for clients who are not able to afford to hire a lawyer to represent them. So this way they're hired by the federal government to basically represent someone so that they don't have that client doesn't have to pay. And this interesting thing about this guy in particular is that he didn't become a lawyer until age 51. He didn't go to law school until he was 48. So he made a late career transition into law. And I have a tutoring student that is making a late career transition to data analyst at 64. So I figured that is my motivation for having this call, and I know him because he's a friend of my dad. But anyway, so now I'm going to talk about three things that I took away from this call that I guess learned from talking to this guy. So the first one is to focus on the journey. Now, an example of this is, when he was in law school, he was around a lot of kids much younger than him that were very competitive, and they were very, on one side you could say they were very driven, but their motivation was just to make a lot of money, and they were very competitive. They wanted to be top 10 in their class, top 10% in their class, and make a lot of money and land a really, fancy, high-paying gig at a corporate law firm. And they were just kind of focused on this big, flashy end result. And a lot of it was, because they might have wanted it, but a lot of these kids had pressure, other families putting pressure on them to, go make a lot of money as a lawyer. And they weren't necessarily passionate about it, and they were just focused on, okay, get this grade, get this job, get this salary, and that's all well and good, but if you hate your life, it's not really worth it, is it? So he made emphasis of focusing on the journey rather than the process, and learning as much as possible along the way. He's worked a variety of odd jobs and stuff, but he just stayed focused on the journey and what he can, I guess kind of like the story he can make with his life, rather than trying to be like top 10, top salary, highest paid, whatever. So the second lesson I took away from him was to walk your own path. He made a lot of decisions that, in hindsight, with the current perspective of seeing the whole story and looking back, it makes sense. But at the time, people definitely thought he was crazy for certain decisions he made. At one point earlier in his earlier career, he moved from Honolulu to Nashville, Tennessee, around the early '90s, at a time when Nashville was just some town in Tennessee that no one really cared about, and everyone thought he was crazy. You're going to leave this house on overlooking the beach with the sun and the palm trees, just to go live in Tennessee, to work for some magazine in Tennessee. People thought he was crazy, but he ended up really liking Nashville, and it found a whole lot of opportunities in Nashville. So that was one example of him doing something at a time or in a situation where a lot of people didn't think it made sense. And then he also went to law school at 48, and people thought he was crazy for that. But are you getting your hopes up? Do you really think you can become a lawyer at 51? At 50? What? You're crazy. And a similar thing happened earlier. I didn't mention this earlier, but earlier in his career, when he was a college student, he got a PhD in social psychology. And the logical thing to do at that point is to become a college professor. But he didn't want to become a college professor. He wanted to do real shit, as he says. He wanted to do something real that would actually have impact on other people and not just sit there and teach some topic for students who at best will probably just end up being the next generation of teachers sitting and teaching the class. He just seemed kind of useless to him. And he ended up, he took a wide variety of odd jobs, some with relevance to his degree, but some with no relevance to his degree. And his professor thought he was crazy for turning down a professor opportunity to be a professor, but he didn't want to do that either. And from the story, he's learned a lot of lessons and had a lot of experiences that he wouldn't have had if he just took that cushy professor university job. And what I can take away from this for myself is to I decide my path and I can determine my path. And there's a lot of things that I may do that don't logically make sense, but and I'm not saying just go crazy and don't think about anything, but I'm saying there's a lot of this micro, and even on a micro level, there's a lot of decisions that you can think about and you can find the best answer when you're alone with yourself, and it can often be the best answer, the best path to go. Now, anyway, so that is the second lesson. And then the third lesson, and this one really is what really strikes me the most, is that the time will pass anyways. So, in this situation, this guy, his goal was, his goal was to attain his law degree, right? And he's 40, so he was 48 trying to attain a law degree, and people were like, "You're crazy." But when you'll be 51 when you get a law degree. And he's like, so what? I'm going to be 50. In 3 years, I'll be 51 anyway. I'm going to be 51 anyway. Those 3 years are going to pass. So I might as well, go chase my goal and go to law school and do this, because that time's still going to pass. And I'm gonna take this and make a slightly more because this was back in the 90s, a slightly more historically current, relevant reference to this is if you have a goal that you want to achieve and it'll take 3 years, and you're like, oh, that takes too long, I'll be too old by the time that happens. I mean, what kind of logic is that? Because if you don't commit to that goal, what are you going to do for 3 years? You're just going to sit around and watch Netflix shows for 3 years and just poke around on your phone and achieve nothing? And maybe shoot for some small little easy goals that don't actually really mean anything to you compared to your initial goal that you had set. And then you'll be 3 years older without even anywhere close to your goal. So that is a big thing I learned, is that it doesn't matter how long your goals and dreams take to achieve, because the time will pass anyway. So anyway, I hope that's some food for thought for you guys, and let me know if you like this kind of stuff, because I did definitely enjoy making this video. Anyway, guys, that's it. Peace out.